In this short video, I want to document the assembly method of our finite element code. So typical for a finite element computation is the computation of element stiffness matrices, whose contribution is then summed into a global stiffness matrix. And so this assembly process is quite simple. And I'm taking as an example here the assembly method of the code which has been published in the book of Oden, Becker, and Carey. So this is the assembly routine in the Fortran code. So for one given element in one right-hand side, given the number of nodes and the node vector, given the global stiffness matrix, the global right-hand side, and the dimension of the global stiffness matrix, for each node in the element, each equation of the element, we identify the global node contribution, the global equation, which for a typical Lagrangian isoparametric finite element code, the number of the node is equal to the number of the equation in a simple code. And then we accumulate the contribution to the global's right-hand side. We loop over the columns. We identify the global equation of that column, and then we sum the contribution to the global stiffness matrix. So the assembly method is actually quite simple. In our code, considering that we give the user the freedom to choose whether the element is either linear or quadratic, and by the fact that we even let the user choose whether one given side associated with the element has linear or quadratic approximation, our assembly method is a little bit more complicated because we need to know whether for each potential side whether there's going to be an equation associated or not. So how do we keep track of that? Well, let's take a look at the code itself first. Okay, so here we have the assembly. I wrote a code which reads a mesh, any mesh, populates the mesh with a math statement, boundary conditions. Then I create an object which is called assemble, which takes the mesh as an input datum. I use the n-equations method from the assembly object to know the number of equations globally. Create a global matrix on the right-hand side, and then I use the compute method of this assembly class to do the assembly of the global stiffness matrix. So let's just take a look how that works. So the compute method actually does the whole thing, does basically the whole finite element assembly procedure. So let's get into that. So we first identify again the number of equations, then actually this is redundant. I'm resizing the global matrix, the global right-hand side, initialize them to 0, and then I identify number of elements, and now I'm going to do, and then I'm going to loop over the elements, compute the element stiffness matrix, EK and EF, and then I'm going to do the assembly method. Okay, so the assembly method in our case is going in 2 steps. So first we need to identify the global equation index associated with each term of our element stiffness matrix, and then we're going to use this global index to do the assembly pretty much as was published in the book of Oden, Becker, and Carey. Okay, so what's complicated in our code for computing the global equations? Well, the element has a fixed number of degrees of freedom objects. So if we go and look at the documentation of the code, okay, so this is the documentation associated with the approximation space. So we see that we have a computational element. This is an abstract class. This is the class where we actually do the computation and keep the data structure. And so you're going to see that in this comp element template class, we have a vector of indexes of degree of freedom objects. Okay, so those are the indexes of a vector of degrees of freedom of this kind of object, which are stored within the computational mesh. And so our degree of freedom object has the data necessary to compute those global indexes. In the first place, the degree of freedom object has a data structure which is called first equation. So the degree of freedom object will have a number of equations associated with it, which amounts to the number of shape functions times the number of state variables. So in our case, number of shape functions will be 1 for the hat function, for the shape function associated with the corner nodes, but then for the sides, for the one-dimensional sides, it can be either 1 or 0. So if the approximation interpolation order is 1, the number of shape functions associated with the sides, which would be quadratic, is 0, because we're not going to use those shape functions. If our interpolation is second order, is quadratic, then the number of shape functions will be 1. So this is already thinking if in the future you would like to extend this code to work with other or higher order approximations, then the number of shape functions would be a function of the order of approximation associated with that degree of freedom. So let's think about it. We have a degree of freedom object. We have a first equation. So if there's one equation associated with, then the degree of freedom will give us this equation. If there's 0 degrees of freedom, then we're going to skip that node. Okay, so this pretty much gives us an indication of what we need to do. So we ask the element how many degrees of freedom, or what's the size of the element matrix going to be. Okay, so we initialize this vector with the global indexes. We loop over the degrees of freedom, which is a fixed number, independent of the order of approximations. We take the degree of freedom index of the element, then we get a reference to that object from the mesh using the index which has been returned by the element, and then we loop over the number of shape of we use a J index which goes from 0 to the number of equations associated with the degree of freedom, which is number of shape functions times number of states variables. And then we assume, or we say that the global equation is always going to be the first equation plus this J. So if the number of shape functions is 0, this loop will never execute, and we will switch to the next degree of freedom. And the Ni is basically a runner. So for each equation identified, we increment Ni. Okay, so this allows me to identify the global equations associated with each local equation of the stiffness matrix. And then the procedure to do the assembly is quite simple. For each element in our element matrix, we identify the global equation Ig using that data structure, do the assembly of the right-hand side, we identify the global equation associated with the column, and sum the values into the global stiffness matrix. So that's all there is to it, to the assembly procedure. So that I don't have a particular test to see whether it's valid, but I just wanted to explain how the global assembly works. Okay.